In this video, I'm gonna add the level 3 spells to the hero's 3 spells tier list. So let's start with Fireball. So troops within the target hex and the adjacent hexes take 10x power plus 15 at a basic level, then 10x power plus 30 and 10x power plus 60. And the cost is relatively high anyway, even if you do have fire magic. So the problem with Fireball is that it does not really deal too much damage, and yeah, it affects all those 7 hexes, which, could, in theory, hit maybe on average, perhaps 2 or 3 guys, maybe. Best case scenario, maybe 4 if they really cluster, but that's not really much. So this is what I was saying about protection from fire, not really protecting against much, because Fireball doesn't deal too much damage anyway. It's not the greatest spell out there, but it's not unusable necessarily. I'd say potentially, definitely better than Death Ripple, since it deals more damage and can be used by more guys, more factions, but it doesn't affect too many units at once, as opposed to Death Ripple. But anyway, better than Protection from Air, probably here below Cure. And also, not that I think about it, potentially Cure is a little bit better than the spell, because the spell has some situations in which it really is not the best choice, because, well, especially if the enemy has, let's say, a negative spell cast on him already, but he casts something on you, and you want to dispel that. Unfortunately, if you have Mass Dispel, you will dispel everything. So that's a bit problematic at times. Anyway, I think Cure might be better than the spell. But anyway, a Fireball, probably a B in the middle. Better than Precision, probably. Next one is Frost Ring. Frost Ring is exactly the same as Fireball, just that the center hex in that area is not affected. So it's kind of a more of a defensive Fireball in a sense, because if one of your creatures is surrounded by other guys, then you can spare that creature, but you can damage everybody else. So that's kind of nice, I guess, but it's still the same problem. It just doesn't deal too much damage. And also, there are 2 problems here, actually. One of them is that if you have a large creature that occupies 2 hexes, then good luck, man. There's no way to not hit that, right? But also, interestingly enough, if you use Fireball or Frost Ring against a creature that occupies 2 hexes, like a unicorn, and you make sure that that your spell hits both hexes, you don't deal double damage. That's kind of bad, man. That could have been more interesting, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So, yeah. Frost Ring must be very close to Fireball. I'd say probably below, just because of the school of magic that it's in. Because technically, sparing that center hex is not that much value anyway, because it doesn't deal too much damage. I might as well tank that damage as well. But if it's not too much damage, would I use these spells? Most of the time, no. I'd say maybe in the early game, I use it mostly against some enemy camps or something, just to deal a little bit more AoE damage, as opposed to just spamming Lightning Bolt or Ice Bolt, Magic Arrow, stuff like that, So, at least they have that going for them, but the damage is so low that, nah, even with all the spell power in the world, it's not, these are not devastating spells. Next one is Hypnotize. This is air magic, and the target enemy troop of less than 25x power plus 10 health is put under your control. Then it's 25x power plus 20 and 25x power plus 50 under your control. Now this is kind of an interesting spell, but this it's kind of interesting that it's a level 3 spell, because as I've said many times, I'm more of a Heroes 2 guy. This is what I grew up with. In Heroes 2, Hypnotize is a level 5 spell, and it does exactly the same thing. It's just, 25x power. No magic number like that, like plus 10 or whatever. And the thing is, the issue with this is that is such a low range, of health, that essentially whatever is hypnotizable could just die from a lightning bolt. So why wouldn't you do that? Well, honestly, Hypnotize seems to have some very niche use cases, meaning, for example, I think it could be some sort of counter to Resurrection, kind of, meaning that, for example, if you have the enemy has a stack that's quite a nuisance to deal with, and the enemy just keeps resurrecting it just to heal it or something like that, you might somehow attack with your creatures such that that stack is gonna be within the hypnotizable range, right, below 25x power or something like that, and then you hypnotize it, and then the enemy needs to dispel or cure or something like that before resurrecting, because even if they heal that hypnotized unit, the hypnotized doesn't go away, even if the health of that creature is gonna exceed the hypnotizable range, let's say. So perhaps that, but it's kind of stupid, right? Isn't that super circumstantial? Probably yes. Also, hypnotize. I mean, I could only envision a situation in which maybe, let's say, but even this is super circumstantial. But anyway, let's say during a siege, you don't have ballistics, you don't have flyers, you can't get in, and maybe the enemy has a very small stack that's hypnotizable, you hypnotize it, and then with that stack, you lower the drawbridge such that you let your guys in. But isn't that kind of stupid? Like, what is this spell, man? Like, if it would have been maybe more, like 50x power or even more or something like that, maybe it would have been too strong, actually. It's kind of a spell that's very difficult to balance, I'd say. But I don't see much use for this. Like, even the guy, Astral, right, who starts off with Hypnotize and is specialized in it, even that guy does, I mean, you could try to make it work, but chances are it won't. Or if you use Hypnotize, you're probably winning anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's kind of a shame, because it's an interesting idea, but it just doesn't work that much. And the cost is huge. Interestingly enough, though, Hypnotize, I don't think the duration is actually true here. Like, duration 1 round per spell power. I haven't tested it too much, but in Heroes 2, I know for sure that even the manual says that, but it's not true. The duration is until you attack with it, or until it gets dispelled or cured, or the enemy uses an anti-magic or something like that. So technically, you could just keep the guy, hypnotized indefinitely, as much as you want. And unfortunately, you can't even block the enemy ranged shooters with the hypnotized unit. Like, you hypnotize some dude, then you move him close to or adjacent to a ranged unit, and that guy can still shoot, because that hypnotized unit is considered still an ally of sorts. So that's kind of bad. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So yeah, that's also a drawback. And what else did I want to say? What's nice about Hypnotize is that if you hypnotize a unit and the enemy casts a super beneficial spell, like let's say Mass Bless, the hypnotized unit gets Bless as well. But since it's so insignificant, since it has such little health, is that really great value? No, not really. Now, I thought about a super interesting use case, but unfortunately, at least in Heroes 2, it doesn't work. Here, I'm not sure, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but probably it doesn't work. If you could have hypnotized the clone, which gets dispelled if it takes like even 1 damage, that would have been great. If the clone would be considered to have 1 HP, then you could hypnotize that clone, and that could be interesting, right? But it doesn't work. So, yeah, hypnotize, I'm sorry, but even if I'm going to be as charitable as possible, it's not really great. So hypnotize, I would say it's kind of unusable. It's probably... Oh, I don't know. Maybe below Disrupting Ray, which is pretty bad, I would say. Like, I legit have never used Hypnotize unironically in Heroes 3 so far. Not even once. Even though I had it. So, yeah, that feels bad, man. Next one is Protection from Earth. So this is interesting. Protection from Earth as a level 3 spell. So it has the same effect as the other protection spells, but this time it makes more sense because Earth Magic has more devastating spells like Meteor Shower at the level 4 and also Implosion, which is the most damaging direct spell. So just because of that, Protection from Earth is not a meme. You could definitely use this, especially if you see that the enemy is casting, Earth Magic at an expert level and deals a ton of damage. Yeah, Protection from Earth could be an issue. I know that I've fought against some AIs that used this against me, and my Implosion got pretty much decimated because of that. It was kind of unusable. I mean, it was almost on par with the Lightning Bolt that I had at that point, so that's kind of bad. Anyway, so Protection from Earth, pretty good, but how good is it compared to the other things? Like, better than, Precision is relatively a meme, I would say, because it's so situational. Everything else, dude, I'm not sure. It feels kind of weird, but probably above these guys. Frost Ring and Fireball seems to make sense to me, because the drop in damage is quite tremendous when it comes to Meteor Shower and or Implosion. Maybe. Just to show how weak these are. Anyway, next one is Teleport. This one costs a ton if you don't have Water Magic, then the cost goes down quite significantly. But anyway, the target allied troop instantly moves to an unoccupied target hex, but it cannot teleport over walls or moats. Advanced effect, you can teleport over moats, even though I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, and the expert, you have no restrictions. I'm not sure what that means, like, you can teleport over moats. What do you mean? Like, does that mean that if a wall is destroyed, so you have an opening, you can teleport through there? Because the moat is just connected to the wall, right? So I'm guessing that's what it means, but, it's not that great, because, again, a parallel to Heroes 2. In Heroes 2, there are no basic effects or whatever. It's just the spell's normal effect. And it has no restrictions whatsoever. Everybody can do that. And that could be kind of nice. Especially during a siege. For example, you have a very slow unit. You teleport it behind the castle walls. That's pretty good value. But here, you need specifically Water Magic at an expert level to do that. Otherwise, well, it's not that great. Obviously, if it's not a siege, then it doesn't matter, you can teleport anywhere, and sometimes that makes sense, especially if you combine it, let's say, with a slow, and the enemies slowly come towards your ranged unit, and then you teleport him away, and on the other side of the battlefield. Maybe that makes sense sometimes. It's not that bad of a spell, teleport. I'd give it a solid B, maybe. I'd say it's probably more usable than these guys. I kind of like teleport, but maybe I have too much of a bias because of Heroes 2. In Heroes 3, I've used teleport, but definitely way less than in Heroes 2. But it seems pretty nice. Anyway, then we have Anti-Magic. And yeah, I'm trying to speed these tier lists up a little bit because they were ridiculously long. But anyway, so Anti-Magic. Earth Magic. There you go. And the target allied troop becomes immune to spells 1, 2, 3 at the basic level. The advanced effect also involves the level 4 spells and then the level 5 spells for the expert effect. Anti-Magic is really strong, I would say. It's quite nice as an extra option to dispel some things because it dispels the negative effects. It's almost like it sort of works like a cure, but without the healing as well. So that's kind of nice. If you have slow on one of your super significant guys, you anti-magic, you prevent a future slow, but also you cure the current slow. That's nice. And you also preserve whatever else you had on that guy, like let's say, I don't know, prayer or something. That's very nice. Or bloodlust, It can actually be dispelled by an expert dispel. I think it's expert, but anyway, that's kind of bad. In Heroes 2, there's no way. If somebody has anti-magic, you need to wait for the duration to go away. That's all. Here, this is a positive point for Dispel, at least, because if you actually dispel an anti-magic, that's kind of interesting, but it makes Dispel better, if you use it to, against the enemy, but sometimes it might be a nuisance or a problem for you, because I've had this situation before. Like, I have had, let's say, a sharpshooter, I cast an anti-magic on him, and then the enemy cast, I don't know, like slow or curse or something like that on all my guys, and the enemy had mass slow on him. And I wanted to dispel the effect because I didn't have cure. But I couldn't do that because I would remove the mass slow from the enemy. And also, I would have removed the anti-magic from my sharpshooter. So it's kind of bad, It's kind of bad. But anyway, anti-magic, I'd say overall, it's pretty good. It's super strong. I would say even better than Cure, right? So I would elevate it to the A tier. And let's see, compared to the other ones, dude, anti-magic technically counters everything, but you can't necessarily rely on that, But let me just say, dude, anti-magic, I think it has won me some battles for sure, especially since you are immune to a blind, for example, so you spare one of your super strong creatures from a blind, and if the enemy wants to dispel, they need to do that in 2 turns, like they dispel the anti-magic and then maybe they blind, but I can anti-magic again, so that is very strong. It counters one of the best spells. I mean, it counters all the best spells in the game, actually, technically. So, dude, honestly, I would put it at A+, even though as I've said, it's kind of nonsensical at some point because, you can get into that stupid situation in which spell A is better than spell B is better than C, but somehow C is better than A. So which one's better? Hell, I don't know. It's cyclical. I have no idea. But anyway, it seems like a very strong spell, anti-magic. Anyway, then we have Misfortune. This is the reverse fortune in a sense. So the luck of a target enemy troop is reduced by 1, then reduced by 2, and Expert means it's a mass misfortune. Now, the same consideration as Fortune. It's not that strong because you can't even go to the negatives, meaning that the only potential benefit here would be if you're so paranoid about the enemy having a lot of luck, which is still 3 maximum, you Misfortune and then you bring down that chance from 12.6 to 4.2%, which is not that crazy. The best benefit would be if you go from some slight chance to an impossibility, right? So if the enemy has 2 luck and you Misfortune, then they have 0 luck, so it's impossible for them to get lucky. But is that so much value? Are you so paranoid about that slight chance that the enemy gets lucky? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But, or you just it's just a counter for Fortune. But how many times is the enemy going to use Fortune on himself? Like, I don't know, man. It's kind of a meme. I would say probably on par with Fortune. And I would say, because it's such an offensive spell, and there's an opportunity cost as well, maybe a little bit better than Fortune, because I can just Misfortune the enemies, remove their 2 luck or reduce their 3 luck to 1, and then I might, I don't know if the enemy AI will justify a cure or a dispel just to get rid of Misfortune or something like that, so it just stays there. That's kind of nice. But here's a question actually that I don't know the answer to. You can exceed 5 luck technically with, let's say you have a expert luck, right, as a secondary skill, but also some artifacts or something like that. Let's say you have plus 5 luck, right, and that's it. That gets converted to 3 luck only during the mission, during the battle, right? And then if that's the case, then if somebody Misfortunes, it goes from 3 to 1, right? Not from 5 to 3 and there's no effect. I'm pretty sure, right? So, yeah. Anyway, that's also something to consider, but yeah, Misfortune not great, but not unusable. Then Air Shield. So the target allied troop takes 25% less damage from ranged attacks, advanced effect 50% less damage, and expert effect is a mass air shield, reducing 50% damage from ranged attacks. That's kind of nice. Now, I don't know about the arrow towers. It seems here like there could be a bug in the base game, but I've never seen that. In Heroes 2, for example, it's pure damage from the arrow towers, let's say, so it's shield doesn't do anything. But here, air shield, in theory, would be quite devastating. Like 50% less damage is insane. It's more than the normal shield, right? Which is all already insane. The issue is, how many ranged guys are you going to face? And how strong are these guys going to be? Like maybe, let's say the enemy has a ton of Titans. Okay, sure, you can air shield. But how, except for that, how many stacks of guys would the enemy need to have? And how big do these stacks need to be for you to justify using air shield? I'm not sure. There are better spells out there. I really don't know. And also, there's this thing that you need to consider. If they shoot from a very high, very large distance, then it's going to be a broken arrow anyway. So that is already kind of like an air shield in a sense, right? That's 50% damage already, unless you go near them or unless they have that artifact, right? The golden bow or whatever. So do you really need to increase this, or do you air shield and then you are free to approach the ranged guys because it's as if there would be a broken arrow anyway? I'm not so sure. Most of the time, I don't really use air shield, even though it seems kind of strong. There are not that many ranged guys that you're going to face. So, I don't think it's too high, but it's not too low either. Definitely worse than the normal shield. So, I'd say, well, let's just put it at, below this spell. Could that make sense? Below the spell. I mean, these are way more usable. Air shield, yeah, seems fine. Better than precision, which also I failed to mention that yes, if you have a broken arrow anyway, increasing the attack by 6 is not that ridiculous because there's already some damage reduction going on because of that. So, ranged guys are a bit problematic. here. But that being said, I think Air Shield here would be fine. Next one is Animate Dead. Reanimates 50x power plus 30 health points of worth of killed undead creatures in the target allied troop, then 50x plus 60 and 50x plus 160 at an expert level. The duration is permanent as well, so that is unbelievably strong for the necromancers. So that's very nice. It's basically resurrection, but for necromancers, and it's always permanent. It doesn't cost that much. It's just 12 if you have earth magic, and it's only a level 3 spell, so that's pretty accessible, I would say. Animate Dead honestly must be one of the best spells in the game, I would say, even though it's, technically used only by one faction, or at least you can use it on one faction, because, you can be a warlock and still use necromancers or something like that. But still, Animate Dead pretty strong. I'd say one of the best spells out there. Yeah, it's kind of debatable compared to Bless and everything else. Probably not better than Haste and Slow, that's for sure. But compared to Blind, I don't know. It heals quite a lot, like 50x power plus 160 for the expert. That's healing quite a bit of stuff. And it's permanent as well. It's pretty strong. Blind seems so devastating against so many creatures as well. Maybe below Blind. The next is Force Field. Yet again, Earth magic, but this time not the greatest spell, I wouldn't say. So a 2 hex wide force wall is created at the target hex. Movement through these hexes is blocked. The advanced effect is 3 hexes wide, and then the expert doesn't do anything else, which is something that I don't see too often. But anyway, it can be removed by Remove Obstacle, which is, it's something, but still, or Expert Dispel, and that kind of feels bad to remove it with Expert Dispel, but whatever. Now, the issue with Force Field is that, honestly, sometimes I feel like the basic effect is more usable than the advanced one or the expert. Meaning that, let's say I have one guy here, let's say a sharpshooter or something, right? And I cast, I don't even know what the orientation is, but I think it's like this, right? So anyway, let's say I cast a force field and it occupies these 2 hexes. That's nice. But if I have an advanced level, I can't cast it here. I need to cast it farther away just to be able to hit 3 hexes. So that means that in order for me to block enemies from attacking my sharpshooter, I would need also some other creatures near, which, is best practice anyway. You should do that. But anyway, in a very dire situation, let's say, where I only have one dude, right? It feels like it's more unusable, right, if it occupies 3 hexes. Or also, what's the use case for this? Like, Force Field to do what? To protect 3 dudes? Or 1 large creature and 1 extra dude or something like that for 2 turns, by the way? Like, it kind of feels iffy to me. Like, only during the campaign. I mean, I've used Force Field very rarely during the campaign and with some shenanigans and stuff like that, but that's because I just didn't have too many other alternatives or something like that. I remember having like some Grand Elves here, I was shooting some Medusas, then I force field whenever they were very close to me, but that's because I didn't have any slow or anything like that. Then I teleported to the other side of the battleground, force field, used the force field there, and did this back and forth because I had a ton of mana and stuff like that. But is that really, do you need a spell for that? I don't know. To me, force field seems more usable than quicksand, for example, or fire wall, but I don't see it being too much of a game changer. So it's probably going to be a C tier, potentially high C, probably here. I think that makes sense. Now let me know what you think. Do you have a vast experience with the force field? Did it really help you in some specific situation? Let me know. But then we have Forgetfulness. A water spell, 50% of the creatures in the target enemy troop with ranged attack forget to shoot and how to use a melee attack. I don't even know if I've seen that, but anyway. Advanced effect, 100% of the creatures in the target troop forget to use their ranged attack, so they just essentially become temporarily melee. That's pretty interesting. And Expert is just a mass effect, which is incredible, but it's incredible against some enemy camps, I'd say. If you attack some, I don't know, like a stack of Titans or something like that, well, actually, no, it's a mind spell, they might be immune, right? No, definitely, yeah, they're immune. Anyway, or Liches are immune, stuff like that. But let's say you're attacking some huge stack of Cyclopes, or yeah, you're visiting a Cyclops stockpile or something like that. Mass Forgetfulness seems pretty interesting, you know? But do you really need a spell for that? Like, are there no other solutions? Do you need, like, if Forgetfulness wouldn't exist, would you think of it? Oh, if only there would be a spell that does exactly this. I don't know, man. It's kind of the same problem with, the ranged units. There are not too many of them, and wasting a spell in a turn just to turn them melee, I mean, in some situations, for sure, you could do this, but most of the time, it's kind of a wasted, slot in your mage guild, I would say. Forgetfulness, not that fantastic. I've used Forgetfulness a few times in the campaign, but mostly against the enemy camps, and that's not great. And against the AI, no, I've cast other spells, way more other spells before, considering Forgetfulness. And also, I would have needed Water Magic specifically, so it depends, really. Even at a basic level, it's still 50% damage reduction for the ranged guys, so that's pretty interesting. It's kind of like, technically, I would say isn't that the same as a Nair Shield, but affecting the enemy? It's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Like, if I have a basic Air Shield or a basic Forgetfulness, if I Air Shield what I believe to be the target of the ranged attack, then there's 50% damage reduction. But if I apply Forgetfulness to that stack that would attack me, and 50% of them forget to shoot, isn't it the same thing? Yeah, kinda, I would say. But it's water magic, so it's kind of more difficult to pull off, getting the expert level, which would be better than a shield in a sense. Interesting. Where's shield? Ah, here. Huh. Well. Maybe here. B plus, potentially, actually. Maybe above precision. Like, if the enemy troops forget to shoot, all of them forget to shoot, that's 100% damage reduction from the ranged attacks, which is better than Air Shield, isn't? Like, it sounds better than Air Shield, now that I think about it, but, even though it's water magic, you know what? Kinda. It's debatable. Maybe I need to play the game more. In general, of course, but I'd say it could be better than Air Shield, which might be preposterous, but that feels right. Let me know what you think, though. Next one is Destroy Undead. Yet another air spell. All undead troops receive 10x power plus 10 damage, then 10x power plus 20, and 10x power plus 50. So it's essentially like a mass magic arrow cast upon every undead creature on the battlefield. That's okay. It's better than Death Ripple, let's say. But unless you combine it with, let's say, sorcery or the Orb of Firmament, then it's not that strong. Like, I remember in the Unholy Alliance, for example, campaign, where you're already level 30 or something like that, and you have 19 spell power or something, and I've also gotten an Orb of Firmament on Gem, Destroy Undead would have dealt like 470 damage or something like that, which would have been quite significant, But at that point, with 19 spell power, if I would have had Implosion or something like that, or way more mana, maybe that is even better. So Destroy Undead kind of makes sense against enemy camps as well. If you fight some random liches, random vampires and stuff like that, yeah, maybe, because there are not too many spells that deal damage to everybody. So that's kind of nice, but it's not the craziest thing out there. And again, it's kind of strange that they changed it compared to Heroes 2. Because in Heroes 2, you have, like Holy Word and Holy Shout, stuff like that. Holy Word is 10x power against the undead troops. Holy Shout is 20x power against enemy undead troops, or against all undead troops. So that's like a mass ice bolt. Now that's quite something. Here, I would have expected that the experts Destroy Undead would deal more damage, like 20x power, or at least, 10x power, 15, and 20 afterwards for the expert. But it's not. It's weaker. It's just Holy Word, which is, not great. Sometimes I use it, for sure, but it's not the most incredible spell out there because it does not really deal that much damage. Yes, total damage for sure. It's like 70x. Of course, if there are seven stacks, for sure. So that's kind of good. But since the damage is so insignificant dealt to each guy in particular, you're not going to do much with that. Like if the enemy has 30 Death Knights or something like that, 8 Ghost Dragons, are you going to go destroy undead? Nah, probably not. Unless you've already cast way more other spells that are better, and then you might consider this, but I don't know about that. Anyway, better than Death Ripple for sure, but then it's more usable than Force Field in these guys, I think. And dude, I don't know, man. Precision, I might downgrade it, because it's not... Every single time I look at Precision, I'm thinking, man, what a meme. But, yeah, maybe a little bit below Precision. But, yeah, Destroy... Nah, not even. No, Destroy Undead C+, perhaps, just because these other chumps are quite weak. Anyway, Mirth. Morale of the target allied troop is increased by 1. Then 2, and then it's a mass effect. And it costs quite a bit, 12 and then 9. Duration is 1 round per spell power. So this is essentially like luck, but a little bit better because morale can go in the negatives as well. You can have -3 to 3 plus 3 morale, as opposed to luck, which is just 0 to 3 in normal circumstances. So Mirth, if you really have very bad morale because of your army composition or something like that, you have a ton of, you have some necromancers or too many factions in your army, and you start off with negative morale, again, if you're really paranoid, you might go Mirth just to compensate for that. Is that tremendous value? No, but it's not too bad either. But also, there's a Sorrow, which is the counterpart to this, so you can reduce the enemy's morale, but that's a level 4 Earth spell. I'm not sure why, but anyway, you could counter that with Mirth as well. But again, are you really that paranoid about it? Because the chances are not that high. Worst case scenario, you would have -3 morale, meaning a 12.6% chance to get bad morale. You Mirth? What, you get 4.2% chance to get bad morale? Is that so significant? I don't think so. Mirth also is a water magic spell, so I don't know about that. And I'd say kind of close to Misfortune and Fortune. Probably better just because morale can go into negatives, but nah. It's just mostly as a good option for the Master Genie, sure, but nah. It's not a great spell. Then we have Landmine. Landmines are placed in 4 random hexes on the battlefield. A troop stepping on a mine takes 10x power plus 25 damage, and enemy creatures battling on their native terrain can see the mines and can cross them safely. To all the others, they are invisible. Then it's 6 mines and slightly more damage, and 8 mines at the expert level and plus 100 damage, so 10x plus 100. I don't quite like these spells where they might not work, Like, if I cast an expert landmine, okay, 8 mines seems relatively significant, and let's assume that the enemy is not on native terrain, so they don't see it. Issue is, they don't land too many times, as far as I've seen. Like, I've used landmine, and I swear to God, man, it's just, they land maybe 1 or 2 hits on one guy specifically, so it's just, and most of the time, they just sit there, and unless I try to specifically bait the enemy into going towards these mines, I don't, but even that is losing a turn just moving just as bait, and hoping that the AI is stupid enough to do that, because against a normal human player, they would be able to tell. Oh, actually, this is a question. I've never seen the AI use landmine, but in PvP, if the enemy uses landmine, how can you tell that? Does it say in the logs, like, oh, enemy hero used landmine? Because you don't see anything anyway. So, or is it a guessing game? Like, he used something, but is it a quicksand? Is it a landmine? What is it? I don't know. I don't know if it's visually clear that he used that spell and you need to watch out. I don't know. But anyway, it seems that, or I think that remove obstacle could show where these landmines are, but don't quote me on that. I'm not so sure where I've read that. But anyway, it's okay-ish, but I think there are way better spells out there. And again, I don't know exactly if you spam landmines in 3 turns, for example, can you actually have 24 mines, or could you occupy the whole battlefield if the enemy does nothing, let's say? Could you create so many landmines? I'm not sure. But landmine, I would say better than quicksand for sure. Firewall, whatever. Force field and landmine. This is the battle of the century. Damn. Potentially landmine more usable, but I'd say it's a C. Probably. Maybe you could see, like, I don't even know if I want to be as charitable as possible to most of these spells, but I can't envision, like, let's say you hypnotize some dude, right? And you move them towards one of your existing landmines that you have already cast way before, but nobody detonated it. But yet again, why would you hypnotize instead of just lightning bolt and that's it? Why would you, like, it would have been interesting if the landmine would have an AoE damage as well, like if it would be collateral damage as well. Somebody hits it and the adjacent guys get attacked as well. Or maybe you set landmine explodes, but if another landmine is adjacent to it, that explodes as well. Even though, that's kind of stupid. Never mind. Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe I've heard about it somewhere that some dude used like a berserk or something like that. Berserked some dude, and that means that he is forced to attack the nearest guy. And if you're the nearest guy and you're faster than that berserked dude, you might just, bait him into hitting the landmines or something like that. But is that, like, are you really doing that? Like, I don't know. It seems very niche. But, yeah, see. The last one, Earthquake. Does 1 point of damage to 2 random walls or arrow towers during the siege combat. Then it's 3 random walls, and then 4 random walls are being hit. Now, 1 point of damage, I'm not sure what that means exactly. Might be every structure might have like 3 health or something like that, but I'm really not sure. Or maybe 2, God knows. But anyway, Earthquake is very situational because most battles are not a siege. Most battles are not, held. I mean, you don't have walls to destroy in most battles. And also, you need to attack a siege, not defend during one, to use Earthquake. The cost is quite tremendous, but it is quite strong. But again, it's kind of an RNG element to it. Even if you do an expert level Earthquake, you might just not hit those, or at least that's what I've seen. You can just hit walls instead of the arrow towers, because those are the biggest issue most of the time, I would say, even though, well, it depends. Earthquake is an okay-ish spell, but because it's so situational, I wouldn't rank it too high. I'd say Earthquake, whenever you can use it, it's pretty good, but most of the time you don't use it. So I would give it a solid B-. B- kind of seems fair. I don't even know. Frost Ring and Fireball, even though they're so insignificant in terms of damage, I use them quite often. Earthquake, God, man, I use it, Jesus Christ, like 1 time maybe every 2 missions in the campaign or something like that. I don't know. Maybe like this. Let me know what you think. That was it for the level 3 spells. Join me next time to add the level 4 ones. Was this faster? I hope so, but probably not. Well, I'll see you next time.